Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. When I was asked to speak about reconciliation, my thought was today the current affairs are dominated by reconciliation. We have many self-proclaimed champions of reconciliation having various theories on reconciliation. Some believe to achieve reconciliation in Sri Lanka, we should have a new constitution. Others believe we should abolish the executive presidency. Federal Sri Lanka, war crimes investigation, and the list is endless. Now, why not? Even some believe addressing the LTT leader as Mr. Prabhakaran is a way to achieve reconciliation. But I would like to begin by reminding everyone here, the peace that we enjoy today was not achieved through any dialogue or negotiations. In fact, it was achieved through a determined military effort that crushed the LTTE. The LTTE are and were a brutal terror outfit with the worst kind of ethno-nationalist ideology. So let us not forget that. So before I start addressing these issues that on reconciliation people talk about, I think it is very important I start to give you a brief insight into the twin forces of Tamil nationalism and the Tamil diaspora, because those twin forces are going to be the challenge that Sri Lanka will face in achieving reconciliation between communities. You all have to remember this phenomena of ethnic homeland is not a very old one. In fact, I believe it is very much a post-independence phenomena. If you remember, during the Solberry submissions, then Tamil leader G.G. Ponnambalam demanded 50-50 representation. That is, in the assembly, 50% of the assembly should be represented by the Sinhalese majority and 50% for the minorities. At that time, no mention of ethnic homeland. So it was only after 1948 the concept of ethnic homeland emerges. And with the ethnic homeland concept, there was also a new phenomena that emerged in the Tamil political sphere, that was traitorization of anyone who had a different view. And especially anyone who had a national outlook was branded a traitor. We know eminent Tamils such as Dr. Neelan Thiruchelvam, Mr. Lakshman Kadirkama were all lost because of this particular phenomena. But this phenomena didn't start in 83, long before, in fact 8 years before that, in 1975, a Jaffna mayor, the SLFP mayor of Jaffna, Alfred Thureappa, was murdered. And he was branded a traitor. Why do I give importance to this? Is because the Tamil community is living through a process where anyone who had an alternative view will be branded a traitor and suppressed, and his views or her views will always be suppressed. So that is the background with which we are dealing with when it comes to the politics of the Tamil community. Friends, today you should remember there are more Tamils living in Toronto than in Jaffna. More Tamils in London than in Batticaloa. And we cannot forget, from Canada to Norway, South Africa to New Zealand, the issues are dominating Sri Lanka are determined in these areas. And we cannot also ignore the Tamil Nadu factor. Let us dwell into some important issues. Let's start talking about federalism. Because it is many believe and many argue that federalism is a way to achieve reconciliation in Sri Lanka. I beg to differ. Because remember, even I recall our foreign minister describing anyone who doesn't agree with this notion of federalism is an extremist, as recently as a week ago, or a few days ago, in fact. Now, consider this fact. In Sri Lanka, we have 3 million Tamils. 70% of them live outside the northern province. So, if you start from that basis, how would you reconcile between communities through this concept of a federal Sri Lanka? Let's go even beyond that. Some even want a southeastern unit, an ethnic enclave for the Muslim community. 80% of the Muslim community live outside this proposed or this unit. So, federalism, and we look at the current, now the speaker earlier mentioned about the land powers, the police powers. As someone who resided and still reside in the Eastern Province, I wonder what would be the case if you have provincial chief ministers with land police powers, because we have had starting with in the merged northern and eastern province, we had a very colorful chief minister who thought conscripting young kids into a Tamil National Army was a way to exercise his province's sovereignty. We had many other colorful characters, and I think less said about them is better. Today, the presidency is regarded as the cause of all ill in Sri Lanka. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a responsibility as Sri Lankans to really ask what kind of future we want for ourselves and our children. Today, all the enthusiasm we've had post-war is becoming, one wonders whether it's going to become a pipe dream. We still have dangers rising once again. We hear stories that makes one apprehensive. As a Sri Lankan today, we all have to remember, we cannot afford to bring about change for the sake of change. We are in 45 years since our first Republican Constitution. We've already had 2 constitutions and 19 amendments. Compare that with the United States. Our respectful parliamentarians today believe the sovereignty lies with the parliament. Again, I beg to differ. The sovereignty lies with we, the people of Sri Lanka. And we exercise our sovereignty not through just the parliament, but also the executive and the judiciary. So imagine having an all-powerful parliament where the prime minister, directly elected or not, exercising all the powers that we have as people without provision for separation of powers. The executive, the legislature, and the judiciary should have separated powers, and that is the way we can ensure as people that our sovereignty is secured. Friends, tomorrow our children who are growing up in Sri Lanka, who was born today, will have to believe that there is a future for them. They do not need to travel abroad to find work, or their aspirations cannot be looking elsewhere. How are we going to ensure that in a new Sri Lanka, where one's ethnicity, one's language, or one's region doesn't matter? How are we going to ensure that a young Tamil child being born in Jaffna to believe that he has a future in Sri Lanka? My view, creating further barriers is not the answer. Regionalism is not the answer. Look at, now some even argue, to keep Sri Lanka together, one has to devolve powers to the provinces. I'll give you an example of Scotland or Catalonia in Spain, where I remember very well in the 1990s, when devolution of power was seen as the answer for Scotland's the future of Scotland and for Britain's future, the Scottish Assembly was devolved, and today one wonders how long United Kingdom will stay together. Same issues are rising in Catalonia and Spain too. So we as Sri Lankans, we have to make some serious decisions. I believe now there's a talk of going for a referendum to bring about a new constitution, because they believe that Parliament cannot make decisions that are far-reaching. I have a view. It may be controversial, but I have a view. I believe that our friends, the TNA, have no reason for them to support a referendum, because they very well know that a referendum will be defeated if it goes to the country. But that is not their motive. I strongly believe that they will persuade through their propaganda for the northern and eastern provinces to vote in favor, and when the rest of the country votes against it, that will provide the TNA with what they call a mandate for a separate agenda. Because I remember that is how their political process began in the 1977 period. So, as Sri Lankans, we all should recognize that the dangers that we face in the country are many. And many things are not what it seems. So, I think to sum up the dangers we face in Sri Lanka today, I think we should look for a Sri Lanka where expressways connecting Badula to Batticaloa, Trincomalee to Anuradhapura, from Puttalam to Colombo, should connect our towns and cities. A country of 65,000 square kilometers is not a big country where for people to live together, where people can have mobility. And only way we can ensure our citizens are empowered is by creating mobility between people, not by creating barriers. Friends, it is up to all of us as Sri Lankans to create the processes that will enable our children to move forward. I have a dream. My dream is a child who is born today. In 20 years, the child could be a Muslim child, a Tamil child, or a Sinhalese child, can dream of even becoming a president of Sri Lanka one day. So, hold on to that thought. Do not support further barriers, and I humbly request you all to think about Sri Lanka's future, because that is what we all want. Thank you very much.